Welcome to my channel, a list that brings your story about the love of a mafia boss. Now let's listen.
The evening shift at Bellucci's had worn me down to my bones. My feet throbbed in worn-out sneakers as I balanced 3 plates of osso buco along my forearm, the rich scent of saffron and wine sauce making my empty stomach growl. 8 hours into a double shift, and the elegant chandeliers that usually gave the restaurant its romantic glow now seemed to bore into my skull like drills. "Order up for table 12, Sophia," Marco barked from the kitchen. I nodded mechanically, tucking a strand of unruly brown hair behind my ear. At 27, I was the oldest server, yet somehow always assigned the worst sections. Tonight was no different. Section 5. The awkward corner with the wobbly table and the draft from the service entrance. The tips were always miserable there. And with rent due in 3 days and Dad's medical bills piling up, I needed every dollar I could scrape together. I'd been invisible my entire life. Middle child of 5 in a chaotic household. Average student. Average looks. Even my voice seemed to dissolve in crowded rooms. Being a waitress just reinforced what I already knew. People looked through me. Not at me. I was a function, not a person. That's when I first noticed them. Table 16 wasn't in my section, but I couldn't help watching as Dominic, our manager, practically tripped over himself seating the group. 4 men in tailored suits that probably cost more than my yearly salary. The restaurant's atmosphere shifted immediately. Conversations dropped to whispers. Servers straightened their postures. Even the kitchen grew quieter. 3 of the men were clearly security, broad-shouldered and vigilant, eyes constantly scanning the room. But the 4th? He was different. Younger than I expected, maybe early 30s. His midnight black suit looked liquid against olive skin. His presence seemed to consume the oxygen around him. Dark eyes, almost black, set in a face that belonged on ancient Roman currency. All sharp angles and aristocratic authority. But what caught my attention wasn't the man. It was the child beside him, a boy, maybe 8 or 9, with the same olive complexion but softer features. He sat rigidly in his chair, eyes fixed on the tablecloth pattern, his fingers methodically aligning and realigning the silverware. While the men talked in hushed tones, the child remained in his own world, occasionally rocking slightly. "That's Vincenzo Rossi," whispered Alicia, another server, materializing beside me. "The head of the Rossi family. They own half the city." My stomach tightened. Everyone knew the Rossi name, even if you never spoke it aloud. Their legitimate businesses, shipping, construction, high-end real estate, were just the surface. What flowed beneath was the lifeblood of organized crime in our city. "And the boy?" I asked, unable to look away. "His son, Lucas. Word is he's autistic. Mother died during childbirth. Rossi brings him everywhere, doesn't trust anyone else with him." I watched as their server approached, his usual swagger replaced by trembling deference. He took drink orders, speaking only to Rossi and his men, completely ignoring the child. Lucas continued rearranging his silverware, now with increasing agitation, his movements becoming jerky. "They say Rossi's obsessed with protecting the boy," Alicia continued. "Someone once accidentally bumped into Lucas at an event. The guy disappeared for 3 weeks. When they found him..." She shuddered. "Well, let's just say both his legs were permanently rearranged." I swallowed hard, forcing myself to return to my section. Table 14 needed refills. Table 9 wanted their check. The rhythm of service pulled me back to my reality of calculated smiles and mechanical courtesy. An hour passed in a blur of orders and empty plates. I was clearing a table when I heard it, a high-pitched keening sound that cut through the restaurant's ambient noise. My eyes darted to table 16. Lucas was rocking more intensely now, hands pressed against his ears. His dinner sat untouched, while Rossi and his men continued their conversation, apparently accustomed to the behavior. Their server was nowhere to be seen, and other diners were beginning to stare. Without thinking, and that was my first mistake, I grabbed a dessert menu and approached their table. The conversation died instantly. One security guard half rose from his seat, hand disappearing beneath his jacket. The temperature around me seemed to plummet 10 degrees. Vincenzo Rossi turned those obsidian eyes on me, and my lungs forgot how to function. Up close, the power radiating from him was almost physical, like standing too close to an electrical transformer. A thin scar traced his jaw, disappearing into the collar of a shirt that probably cost more than my car. "Excuse me," I managed, my voice embarrassingly small. I thought perhaps. I directed my attention to Lucas, crouching slightly to meet his eye level. "Would you like to see our dessert menu? We have gelato with chocolate puzzle pieces that you can arrange before eating." The boy's rocking slowed. His eyes flicked toward me, then away, then back again. A brief connection that felt like a victory. "Lucas doesn't eat dessert," Rossi said, his voice a low, cultured rumble that somehow felt like a blade against my throat. "And this isn't your section." I should have backed away then, should have apologized and retreated. But something about the dismissal, the same invisibility I'd felt my entire life, ignited a rare spark of defiance. "Actually," I said, "we just created a new dessert that's not on the menu yet. It has no refined sugar and is made with organic ingredients." A complete lie, but I continued. "Sometimes a change in routine can help when things get overwhelming." I was speaking from experience. My youngest brother was on the spectrum, and I'd grown up learning his patterns and triggers, but I wasn't thinking about the consequences of inserting myself into the world of a man who supposedly broke people for touching his son. Rossi's eyes narrowed fractionally. The guards tensed. Time stretched like warm caramel, slow and suffocating. Then, miracle of miracles, Lucas spoke. "Puzzle pieces?" he asked, his voice soft but clear, eyes still on the table. Something shifted in Rossi's expression. A softening so subtle I might have imagined it. He studied me with new intensity, as though recategorizing me from insignificant to something else. "Yes," I said to Lucas, ignoring the weight of his father's gaze. "Chocolate ones. You can arrange them however you like before eating them." Lucas's fingers stopped their restless movement. "I like puzzles. I know you do," I said gently. "I can see how perfectly you've arranged your silverware." For 3 heartbeats, no one spoke. Then Rossi gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Bring the dessert," he commanded. I hurried to the kitchen, heart hammering against my ribs. Marco stared at me like I'd lost my mind when I explained what I needed, but one mention of table 16, and he was suddenly cooperative, helping me arrange chocolate pieces on a plate of vanilla bean gelato. When I returned, Lucas's eyes widened at the dessert. For the first time, a small smile touched his lips as he carefully began arranging the chocolate pieces into a pattern. "Thank you," Rossi said, the words clearly unfamiliar in his mouth. I nodded and stepped back, ready to escape, when his voice stopped me. "Your name?" My throat went dry. "Sophia. Sophia Tanner." "Sophia," he repeated, as though testing the sound of it. "You know something about children like my son." It wasn't a question. "My youngest brother is similar," I said. "I helped raise him." Something unreadable passed behind those dark eyes. "You're not our server." "No, sir. I'm Section 5 tonight." His gaze flicked to my name tag, then scanned me from head to toe. Not in the leering way I was accustomed to from customers, but as if cataloging every detail of my existence. "Section 5 is beneath your abilities," he stated flatly. Before I could respond, he turned back to his companions, a clear dismissal. I retreated to my tables, feeling the weight of his attention even with his back turned, as if I'd somehow entangled myself in an invisible web. The rest of the evening passed in a fog. I kept finding reasons to glance at table 16, where Lucas was now calmly eating his dessert, occasionally looking up at his father with that small, rare smile. Once, I caught Rossi watching me, his expression inscrutable. When they finally prepared to leave, I deliberately busied myself at the service station, not wanting another encounter. Through my peripheral vision, I saw Rossi rise, buttoning his jacket with elegant precision. He placed a hand gently on his son's shoulder, guiding him toward the exit while his security formed a protective triangle around them. I exhaled slowly, tension draining from my shoulders. Whatever strange moment had passed between us was over. By tomorrow, I'd be just another forgettable face in his world. But as I turned to deliver a check to table 12, I nearly collided with a broad chest. One of Rossi's men stood before me, the youngest of the 3 guards, with close-cropped hair and eyes like polished steel. "Mr. Rossi would like to speak with you," he said, voice devoid of inflection. "Outside." Ice flooded my veins. "I'm still on shift," I managed. "I can't just leave." The man's expression didn't change. "It's been arranged with management." Sure enough, Dominic was watching from across the room, his face pale as he gave me a quick nod. My options evaporated like morning dew. With leaden feet, I followed the guard through the restaurant, painfully aware of the curious stares from my coworkers. Outside, the October night air bit through my thin uniform. A sleek black Bentley idled at the curb, its windows tinted impenetrably dark. The guard opened the rear door. "Please," he said, though it wasn't really a request. Heart hammering, I slid into buttery leather that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. The interior smelled of expensive cologne and subtle leather. Lucas sat across from me, still arranging and rearranging a small metal puzzle in his hands. Beside him, Vincenzo Rossi studied me with that same unsettling intensity. "You made quite an impression on my son, Sophia Tanner," he said, my name rolling off his tongue like he owned it now. "I'm glad he enjoyed the dessert," I said carefully. "Do you know who I am?" Direct. Unflinching. I met his gaze despite my fear. "Yes." "And still you approached our table." "I saw someone who needed help," I said simply. "It's what I would do for anyone." Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "My son is not anyone," he said softly. "He is everything." The car began to move, pulling smoothly away from the restaurant. "Wait," I said, panic rising in my throat. "Where are we going? I need to finish my shift." "Your shift is over," Rossi interrupted, "and you won't be returning to Bellucci's." The finality in his voice sent shivers down my spine. What had I done? All for a moment of kindness that I couldn't even explain to myself. "Mr. Rossi," I began, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I appreciate the conversation, but I really need that job. My father is sick and I have bills." "Your father has stage 4 lung cancer," he stated, as if reading from a file. "Treatment at Mercy General. Your mother left when you were 12. You have 4 siblings, including the youngest with autism. You live in the Parkview Apartments, Unit 3B, and you're 3 months behind on rent." My blood turned to ice. How could he possibly know all that? I'd only given him my name 15 minutes ago. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. Rossi's eyes never left mine. "Lucas needs someone who understands him. Someone patient. His last 3 nannies failed miserably. Understanding dawned slowly." "You want me to work for you? To help with Lucas?" "You start tomorrow. The salary is $15,000 a month, plus room and board at my residence." The number hit me like a physical blow. It was more than 5 times what I made at the restaurant. "This isn't a request, Sophia," he added, his voice silken but unyielding. "You've shown a rare ability to connect with my son. That makes you valuable to me." Lucas looked up suddenly, his dark eyes finding mine with surprising clarity. "Will you make more puzzle desserts?" The innocence of the question against the suffocating power play unfolding around it nearly broke me. I was being coerced, possibly kidnapped, yet this child's simple question somehow cut through my fear. "If you'd like me to," I answered him gently. "I would," Lucas said, returning to his puzzle. Rossi watched this exchange with calculating eyes. "See? It's settled." "Nothing is settled," I said, finding an unexpected well of courage. "You can't just conscript people into your service." A cold smile touched his lips. "I believe I just did." The car slowed, and I realized with confusion that we were outside my apartment building, a rundown structure in a neighborhood most people avoided after dark. "Think of it this way," Rossi said, his voice dropping to an intimate murmur that somehow frightened me more than any threat could have. "You helped my son tonight when no one else would. Now I'm helping you. Your father's medical bills will be covered. Your siblings' education funded. Your financial problems eliminated." He leaned closer, and I caught the scent of sandalwood and something darker beneath it. "All you have to do is say yes, Sophia." My mind raced through options that didn't exist. Refuse and What? Continue struggling to make rent while Dad's condition worsened, or accept an offer that felt more like a beautiful cage than an opportunity? I need time to think, I said. You have until tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. He handed me a business card with a single phone number embossed in gold. My driver will collect you, or you can call this number if you prefer to arrange your own transportation to the estate. The door opened beside me. The cool night air felt like freedom, however temporary. Why me? I couldn't help asking as I stepped out. There must be professional caretakers, people with actual qualifications. Because, Rossi said, those obsidian eyes holding mine captive. My son smiled at you. Do you know how rare that is? Something possessive darkened his expression. People I value are kept close, Sophia Tanner. Very close. The door closed with soft finality, and the Bentley glided away into the night, leaving me standing on the cracked sidewalk, clutching a gold-embossed card, and wondering if my simple act of kindness had just altered the course of my life irrevocably. I climbed the stairs to my apartment in a daze, knowing that whatever choice I made by morning, nothing would ever be the same again. Sleep evaded me that night. I lay awake in my cramped bedroom, staring at water stains on the ceiling while Rossi's words echoed in my mind. $15,000 a month, Dad's medical bills covered, a way out of the financial quicksand I'd been drowning in for years. But at what cost? By dawn, exhaustion had worn down my defenses. I called the hospital first, checking on Dad. No change, the night nurse said gently. The unspoken truth hung between us. Without experimental treatment we couldn't afford. No change was just a kinder way of saying he was still dying. At 7:30, I called the number on the card. A woman answered on the first ring. Ms. Tanner, she said, as if expecting my call. The car will arrive in 20 minutes. I packed hastily. Some clothes, toiletries, a dog-eared photo of my family from happier times. My phone buzzed with a text from my younger sister, asking if I could cover Dad's prescription copay this week. I stared at it, unable to formulate a response that wouldn't sound insane. Sorry, can't talk now. Being collected by a Mafia boss because I gave his son dessert. The black Bentley arrived precisely on time. The same stone-faced guard from last night held the door as I slid into the leather back seat. This time, I was alone. We drove in silence through neighborhoods that grew progressively more affluent, until the urban landscape gave way to sprawling estates hidden behind imposing gates and manicured hedges. After nearly 40 minutes, we turned onto a private road that wound through dense pine forest. The Rossi estate emerged like something from another century, a massive Mediterranean-style villa of pale stone and terracotta, perched on a hillside overlooking the city. Fountains flanked the circular driveway where our car finally stopped. The morning sunlight cast the entire scene in a golden glow that seemed to mock the darkness I associated with its owner. A slender woman in a tailored gray suit waited on the marble steps. Ms. Tanner, she greeted me, her smile professional but cool. I'm Diana Vargas, Mr. Rossi's personal assistant. Welcome to Villa Rossi. The interior was even more impressive. Soaring ceilings, museum-quality art, floors of polished marble that clicked beneath Diana's heels as she led me through the foyer. Your primary responsibility will be Lucas, she explained efficiently. His routine is precisely documented. Deviations cause difficulties. You'll have your own suite adjacent to his rooms. Mr. Rossi prefers Lucas's caretaker to be available at all times. My stomach tightened. At all times? You'll have 1 day off per week, Sundays. She paused, assessing my reaction. This position requires total commitment, Ms. Tanner. Lucas becomes attached easily and disruptions upset him deeply. We stopped before a heavy wooden door. Diana knocked softly before pushing it open to reveal a child's paradise. The spacious room was divided into organized activity zones, a reading nook with built-in bookshelves, an art station with perfectly arranged supplies, a computer area, and a large table covered with complex puzzles in various stages of completion. Lucas sat cross-legged on the floor, meticulously arranging colored blocks into intricate patterns. He didn't look up when we entered. Lucas, Diana said, your new caretaker is here. He continued arranging blocks, seemingly oblivious to our presence. I recognized the behavior from my experiences with my brother. Not rudeness, Just complete absorption in his current focus. I knelt down a few feet away from him, careful not to disturb his pattern. "Hello, Lucas. I'm Sophia from the restaurant. I brought something for you." I reached into my bag and pulled out a small box of chocolate puzzle pieces I'd asked Marco to prepare before leaving Bellucci's last night. Lucas's hands stilled. Slowly, his eyes lifted to the box, then to my face. Brief eye contact that lasted only a second before shifting away. "Puzzle dessert," he said quietly. "Yes," I smiled. "Just like yesterday. Would you like to try them now, or save them for after lunch?" He considered this seriously. After lunch. Rules say dessert comes after lunch. That's right. Rules are important. A ghost of a smile touched his lips before he returned to his blocks. Diana watched this exchange with surprise. "Well," she said, "perhaps Mr. Rossi's confidence in you isn't misplaced. Let me show you to your quarters." My quarters turned out to be a luxurious suite larger than my entire apartment, connected to Lucas's rooms by a shared sitting area. The bedroom featured a king-sized bed draped in linens that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The bathroom gleamed with marble and chrome, and the walk-in closet stood empty, awaiting possessions I didn't own. "Your measurements were provided to our personal shopper," Diana explained, noting my confusion at the empty closet. "Appropriate attire will be delivered this afternoon. Mr. Rossi insists that his household staff present a certain image." I bristled at being called staff, but swallowed the retort. "When will I meet with Mr. Rossi to discuss my exact responsibilities?" "Mr. Rossi will dine with Lucas at 7. You're expected to join them." She handed me a tablet. "Lucas's schedule, dietary requirements, behavioral notes, and educational materials are all here. Familiarize yourself with them immediately. The previous caretaker's notes are particularly enlightening about what not to do." With that ominous statement, she left me alone in my gilded cage. I spent the morning with Lucas, following his carefully structured routine. He relaxed noticeably when he realized I understood his need for order and predictability. By lunchtime, he was showing me his favorite puzzles, explaining their patterns with surprising eloquence. As we ate the precisely arranged lunch that had been delivered to his rooms, I ventured a question. "Lucas, what happened to your last caretaker?" He lined up his carrot sticks in perfect parallels before answering. "Ms. Eleanor said I was difficult. She yelled when I couldn't wear the scratchy sweater. Father made her go away." The casual way he said this sent a chill through me. Made her go away. What exactly did that mean in Vincenzo Rossi's world? After lunch, Lucas enjoyed his chocolate puzzle pieces, arranging them in complex patterns before carefully eating each one. He then settled into his afternoon reading time, allowing me a moment to explore the tablet Diana had given me. The previous caretaker's notes were indeed revealing. Eleanor Blackwood had lasted 3 months, the longest of any caretaker so far. Her notes documented Lucas's triggers, loud noises, certain fabrics, disrupted routines, but showed little empathy for the child. The final entry simply read, "Impossible child, impossible expectations. Not worth it." Other notes outlined Rossi's involvement, daily briefings required, immediate notification of any issues, his tendency to appear unexpectedly to check on his son. The word overprotective appeared frequently, usually underlined or followed by multiple exclamation points. At exactly 5 o'clock, Lucas announced it was swimming time. I followed him through a glass corridor that led to an indoor pool pavilion. 2 security guards nodded respectfully as we passed. "Do you enjoy swimming, Lucas?" I asked as he methodically changed into his swim trunks in a private cabana. 24 laps every day, he replied. "Father says physical exercise is as important as mental exercise." I sat at the pool's edge while Lucas swam with perfect form, completing exactly 24 laps before climbing out and precisely wrapping himself in a plush towel. We had just returned to his rooms when a soft knock came at the door. Lucas tensed immediately. The door opened to reveal Vincenzo Rossi. He looked different than he had at the restaurant. More casual and tailored charcoal slacks, and a crisp white shirt, with the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. The change of attire did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. "Papa," Lucas said, his face brightening slightly. Rossi's expression transformed when he looked at his son, the hardness softening into something almost tender. "How was your day, piccolo mio?" "Sophia brought chocolate puzzles," Lucas reported. And she didn't make me wear the scratchy socks when I said they hurt my feet. Rossi's dark eyes shifted to me, that calculating intensity returning. Did she now? I straightened under his scrutiny. The gray socks in his drawer have a seam that bothers him. I found the seamless ones instead. You noticed this on your first day? I thought of my brother. Sensory sensitivities are common. The smallest discomfort can feel unbearable. Something like approval flickered across his face before he turned back to Lucas. Go prepare for dinner with Mrs. Abelli. I need to speak with Sophia. When Lucas had gone to the adjoining room with an older woman who'd appeared silently at Rossi's command, he gestured for me to sit on the nearby sofa. I perched on the edge, hyper-aware of his proximity as he sat across from me. Lucas seems comfortable with you, he said, studying me with unnerving focus. That's unusual. He's a wonderful child, I said honestly. Smart, observant, and very precise in his communication. Most people don't see that. They see only the differences, the behaviors they don't understand. His voice held a dangerous edge. His mother's family wanted to institutionalize him after she died. They called him broken. I couldn't mask my horror. He's not broken. He's just perfect, exactly as he is. Rossi finished, his eyes never leaving mine. The first caretaker who suggested otherwise disappeared with nothing but the clothes on her back. The second lasted 2 weeks before deciding the salary wasn't worth the intensity of the position. The implied threat hung in the air between us. And Eleanor Blackwood, the third caretaker? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Decided to pursue opportunities abroad. Very suddenly. My mouth went dry. Mr. Rossi. Vincenzo, he corrected. Vincenzo, I repeated, the name feeling dangerously intimate on my tongue. I should be clear about something. I'm here because I need the money, yes, but also because I genuinely want to help Lucas. I don't see this as just a job. Good, he said simply. Because it isn't just a job, it's your life now. Before I could respond to that chilling statement, he continued, Your father has been transferred to the private wing at St. Augustine's Medical Center. The experimental treatment begins tomorrow. I stared at him, speechless. He'd actually done it. Thank you. Don't thank me, Sophia. Just do your job. Keep my son happy. Everything else will follow. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket with that same elegant precision I'd noticed at the restaurant. Dinner is at 7. Lucas prefers routines, so we dine together every evening when I'm home. And when you're not home? Something darkened in his expression. Then you keep him safe until I return. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. The East Wing is private. Neither you nor Lucas are to go there. Ever. Understood? I nodded, adding this mysterious prohibition to the mental list of rules in this strange new world. Good, he said, his gaze lingering on my face a beat longer than necessary. I have a feeling you're going to work out very well here, Sophia Tanner. The way he said it, like a prophecy rather than a hope, sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. Dinner that evening was a study in contrasts. The formal dining room could have hosted 20 guests comfortably, yet only 3 places were set at one end of the massive mahogany table. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over silver and china that probably predated my grandparents. Lucas sat ramrod straight in his chair, carefully cutting his food into perfect squares before eating each piece. Across from me, Vincenzo alternated between subtle observation of his son and piercing glances at me that made my skin tingle with awareness. Lucas tells me you found his seamless socks, Vincenzo remarked, breaking the silence. Eleanor insisted he was merely being difficult about the regular ones. I took a sip of water, buying time to frame my response. Sensitivity to textures is common with sensory processing differences. It's not stubbornness, it's actual physical discomfort. Like wearing shoes filled with rocks, Lucas added unexpectedly. Vincenzo's expression softened as he looked at his son. Is that how it feels, piccolo mio? Lucas nodded, still focused on cutting his food. Sophia understands, like Michael. Michael is my younger brother, I explained. He's on the spectrum too. Something shifted in Vincenzo's gaze. A new calculation. as if adding pieces to some internal puzzle. "Tell me about your family, Sophia." The request felt like a command. "There's not much to tell. Mom left when I was 12. Dad raised the 5 of us alone, working 2 jobs until he got sick last year." I twisted my napkin in my lap. "I'm the middle child, the responsible one, the caretaker," Vincenzo observed. "Even before you were hired to be one." His perception was uncomfortably accurate. I'd been managing my siblings' schedules, cooking meals, and handling household crises since I was a teenager. The waitressing job had been just the latest in a string of positions I'd taken to keep our family afloat. "Someone had to step up," I said simply. "Indeed." He refilled his wine glass, then mine, though I'd barely touched it. "And now someone is stepping up for you. Your father's doctors report he's responding well to the new treatment protocol." My head snapped up. "You've spoken to his doctors? Today?" A cold smile. "I make it a point to monitor my investments." The reminder of my position, an investment rather than a person, stung, but I forced myself to focus on the silver lining. Dad was getting help. That's what mattered. "Papa," Lucas interrupted, having finished arranging his food. "May I show Sophia my collection after dinner?" Vincenzo considered this, then nodded. "For 30 minutes. Then it's time for your evening routine." Lucas's collection turned out to be a museum-quality array of minerals and gemstones, each labeled and arranged in lighted display cases in a special room adjacent to his bedroom. He showed me each specimen with proud precision, explaining its properties and origins. "This is amazing, Lucas," I said genuinely. "How long have you been collecting? 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days? He replied without hesitation. "Papa brings me a new specimen whenever he travels. I studied a particularly beautiful piece of raw emerald." "Your father travels often?" Lucas nodded. "Business. Sometimes he's gone for many days. That's when the bad dreams come." My heart squeezed. "You have nightmares when your father is away?" "About the men who came before." His voice dropped to a whisper. "The ones who tried to take me." Ice flooded my veins. "Someone tried to take you?" Lucas's hands began fluttering anxiously. "I don't remember. Papa says I don't need to remember. But sometimes in dreams." I gently redirected him to his collection, making a mental note to ask Diana about this disturbing revelation. No wonder Vincenzo was pathologically protective if someone had attempted to kidnap his son. After helping Lucas through his evening routine, bath, pajamas, precisely 20 minutes of reading, I returned to my suite, emotionally and physically exhausted. As I was about to change for bed, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. East Garden. 10 minutes. No signature, but I knew instantly who it was from. The imperious tone translated perfectly to text. The path to the East Garden was lit by subtle landscape lighting. I found Vincenzo seated on a stone bench beneath a pergola, draped with night-blooming jasmine, the sweet scent filling the cool night air. He'd exchanged his dinner attire for dark jeans and a casual black sweater that did nothing to diminish his aura of authority. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the space beside him. I hesitated before complying, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "Is something wrong with Lucas?" "Lucas is fine. I checked the security feed in his room throughout the night." Of course he did. Nothing about his obsessive vigilance surprised me anymore. "Then why am I here?" Vincenzo studied me in the moonlight. "I want to know what my son told you about the men who tried to take him." So he'd been monitoring our conversation. I suppressed a flare of anger at the invasion of privacy. "Very little. Just that there were nightmares about men who came before." I met his gaze directly. "What happened to him?" Vincenzo was silent for so long I thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was deceptively soft, like the whisper of a blade being unsheathed. 3 years ago, members of a rival organization attempted to kidnap Lucas from his school. They believed possessing my son would give them leverage. His expression turned deadly. They were mistaken. The implications hung in the night air between us. I didn't need to ask what had happened to those men. Since then, Lucas has been homeschooled and rarely leaves the estate. He turned to face me fully, which is why your connection with him is so valuable and so dangerous. Dangerous? I don't understand. Lucas trusts you after a single day. That makes you uniquely positioned to help him, or to hurt him, to help me, or to hurt me. His voice hardened. I protect what's mine, Sophia, viciously. The possessive declaration sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. Fear mingled with something else I didn't want to examine. I would never hurt Lucas, I said firmly. See that you don't. He reached out suddenly, his fingers capturing a strand of my hair that had escaped its loose bun. You present an interesting puzzle, Sophia Tanner. The dutiful daughter and sister, the invisible waitress. Yet in one moment, you did what no one else would. You saw my son when everyone else looked away. His fingers grazed my cheek as he tucked the strand behind my ear, the casual intimacy of the gesture freezing me in place. I wonder what else you see that others miss. I pulled back slightly, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Mr. Rossi. Vincenzo, he corrected again. Vincenzo, I conceded. I'm here to help Lucas. That's all. A cold smile. Is it? Not the money? Not your father's treatment? Not the security I provide your siblings? Those things matter, of course they do. But then we understand each other. He stood abruptly. Diana will give you a full tour of the grounds tomorrow. Lucas has lessons with his tutor until noon. The dismissal was clear, but I remained seated. May I ask you something? He raised an eyebrow, clearly unused to being questioned. You may ask. The East Wing. Why is it forbidden? Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Because it's where I conduct business that doesn't concern you. Business, I repeated. The kind that led to men trying to kidnap your son? I knew immediately I'd crossed a line. Vincenzo's expression hardened to granite, and he stepped closer, looming over me in a way that made my heart race with primal fear. Careful, Sophia, he said softly. Curiosity about certain matters can be unhealthy. I should have backed down, should have apologized, but some reckless part of me pushed forward. If I'm responsible for Lucas's safety, I should understand the dangers. For a moment I thought he might strike me. Instead he laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Brave little Sophia, he murmured. So concerned for my son that she dares question me in my own home. He leaned down, his face inches from mine. The East Wing houses my private offices and security operations. It's restricted because what happens there ensures this family's continued prosperity and survival. His eyes held mine, challenging me to object to the euphemisms for whatever criminal enterprises he conducted there. Now, he continued, straightening. It's late, and you have an important job to do tomorrow. Good night, Sophia. I remained on the bench long after he'd disappeared into the shadows of the villa, trying to calm my racing heart. What had I gotten myself into? The enormity of my situation crashed over me. I was living in the home of a man who casually referenced having people disappeared, a man whose enemies targeted children for leverage, yet this same man tenderly watched over his special needs son, fought for his well-being, and had single-handedly saved my father's life with a single phone call. The contradiction made my head spin. 2 weeks passed in a rhythm that gradually began to feel normal, despite the surreal circumstances. Lucas and I settled into a comfortable routine. His meltdowns decreased as I learned his triggers and adapted his environment accordingly. He began seeking me out for comfort during moments of overstimulation, a trust that both warmed and terrified me given his father's possessive vigilance. Vincenzo remained an enigmatic presence, sometimes absent for days on business, other times appearing unexpectedly to observe Lucas and me together. His gaze followed me constantly when he was home, assessing, calculating, with occasional flashes of something darker that made my pulse quicken. On a crisp Sunday afternoon, my day off, I sat in the garden with my phone, video chatting with my sister Emma, who was visiting Dad at the hospital. He looks better, she reported, angling the camera to show our father. Though still gaunt, the gray pallor had left his skin. He waved weakly at the camera. The doctors say the treatment is working, Soph, Emma continued. They're calling it miraculous. Whatever fancy restaurant you're working at now, they must be paying you a fortune. I forced a smile, the lie bitter on my tongue. The tips are great, I said, sticking to the story I'd fabricated. They believed I'd taken a position at an exclusive restaurant whose wealthy clientele insisted on staff confidentiality. It was easier than explaining the truth. And they let you live there? That's wild. It simplifies things, I hedged. How's Michael doing? Much better since we moved to the new apartment. No more leaky ceiling, and he has his own room now. The new apartment was another of Vincenzo's arrangements, a spacious 3-bedroom in a safe neighborhood, with rent mysteriously covered for the next 12 months. My siblings thought it was subsidized housing that had finally come through after years on a waiting list. Miss Sophia? I turned to see Lucas standing hesitantly at the garden entrance, a security guard hovering nearby. Unusual. Lucas rarely sought me out on my days off, understanding the concept of everyone needs alone time that we'd worked on together. Emma, I have to go, I said quickly. Kiss Dad for me. Love you. I ended the call and beckoned to Lucas. What's wrong, buddy? Papa wants you, he said, his voice tight with anxiety. In the East Wing. My blood turned to ice. The East Wing. The Forbidden Zone. In the 3 weeks I'd been at Villa Rossi, that boundary had remained uncrossed, a line drawn in concrete rather than sand. Did he say why? I asked Lucas, trying to keep my voice steady. Lucas shook his head, fingers fluttering with obvious distress. He was talking on the phone. His voice got very quiet. He leaned closer to whisper. That's when bad things happen. The perceptiveness of this child never ceased to amaze me. He might struggle with certain social cues, but he read his father's moods with unerring accuracy. It's okay, I assured him, though my racing heart suggested otherwise. I'll go see what he needs. Why don't you work on that new puzzle we started yesterday? Lucas nodded, but his troubled expression remained. Be careful, Miss Sophia. The security guard, Marco, one of the few whose name I'd learned, led me silently through the villa's main wing, then through a heavy oak door that had always been locked on my previous explorations. Beyond it lay a corridor noticeably different from the rest of the house. No artwork, no decorative touches, just sleek modernism with subtle security cameras tracking every movement. Marco stopped before a set of double doors, knocked once, and stepped aside. Taking a deep breath, I entered. The office beyond was spacious and coldly elegant, all glass, chrome, and black leather. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping view of the city below, glittering in the late afternoon sun. Vincenzo stood with his back to me, phone pressed to his ear, tension evident in the set of his shoulders beneath his impeccably tailored suit. Find him, he said softly into the phone, his voice like sharpened steel. Use whatever methods necessary. He paused. No witnesses. He ended the call and turned, his expression shifting subtly when he saw me. The predator momentarily cloaked behind the businessman. Sophia, he said, as if my presence in his forbidden sanctuary was the most natural thing in the world. Thank you for coming. I remained near the door, fighting the instinct to retreat. Lucas said you wanted to see me. Yes. He moved to a black leather sofa in the corner of the room, gesturing for me to join him. When I hesitated, a flicker of impatience crossed his face. Please. I perched on the edge of the sofa, maintaining as much distance as I could without seeming overtly afraid. Am I in trouble? A cold smile. Should you be? I don't know. You're the one who summoned me to the Forbidden Wing. His eyebrow arched at my boldness. Not forbidden to you, not anymore. This unexpected statement hung between us as he studied me with unnerving intensity. I've been watching you with my son, he said finally. You've exceeded my expectations. Relief flooded me. This was about Lucas, not some perceived transgression on my part. He's doing well, I agreed. The meltdowns have decreased significantly, and he's sleeping through the night more consistently. He trusts you. Vincenzo leaned forward, elbows on his knees. And now, I need to know if I can trust you too. My mouth went dry. What does that mean? It means circumstances have changed. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. I need to leave town for several days. Business that can't be conducted remotely. Okay, I said cautiously. Lucas and I will be fine. We've managed your overnight trips before. This is different. He turned back to me, his expression grave. This trip carries certain Risks. Understanding dawned slowly. You think something might happen to you. It's unlikely, he said dismissively. But I don't leave anything to chance where my son is concerned. He crossed to his desk and retrieved a sealed envelope, which he handed to me. Inside are emergency protocols and contact information. If something happens to me, you are to take Lucas and follow these instructions precisely. I stared at the envelope in my hands. Why me? You have security staff, Diana. People who've worked for you for years. Who could be compromised? His voice hardened. You are an outsider. Your loyalty is purchased, not born of family ties or long association. And most importantly, Lucas trusts you implicitly. The clinical assessment stung more than it should have. So I'm trustworthy because I'm a hired hand with no connections to your world? Precisely. He moved closer, his dark eyes never leaving mine. Your motives are transparent. Your father's care, your siblings' welfare, all dependent on your continued employment. Self-interest makes you predictable. I stood, anger flaring. Is that all I am to you? A predictable tool to be used? Something dangerous flickered in his expression as he closed the distance between us. What do you want to be, Sophia? The question knocked me off balance. What did I want? 3 weeks ago, the answer would have been simple. A better job, financial security, my father's health. Now, I want to be seen as a person, I said quietly. Not just an investment or a caretaker or a contingency plan. I see you, he murmured, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from my face. The casual intimacy of the gesture sent electricity skittering down my spine, more clearly, perhaps, than you see yourself. His fingers lingered against my cheek, and I found myself unable to pull away, trapped in the gravitational pull of his presence. Your kindness to my son began as simple compassion, he continued, voice dropping to an intimate murmur, but now you care for him, genuinely. I've watched it happen. Despite knowing who I am, what I do, you've allowed yourself to form that attachment. His assessment was uncomfortably accurate. Against all reason, I had grown to love Lucas. His brilliant mind, his precise way of ordering the world, his rare, precious smiles that felt like victories. Lucas is easy to love, I admitted. And his father? Vincenzo's hand slid to the nape of my neck, a possessive touch that should have frightened me, but instead sent heat coursing through my veins. What do you feel for him? My heart hammered against my ribs. This dangerous attraction had been simmering beneath the surface of our every interaction, a current I desperately tried to ignore. He was my employer, a criminal, a man who casually ordered violence in the same tone he used to discuss dinner plans. Confusion, I whispered truthfully. Fear. And beneath that, his face was inches from mine now, his breath warm against my lips. Nothing that makes any sense. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. Few worthwhile things do. When his lips met mine, I should have pulled away, should have remembered all the reasons this was insanity. Instead, my hands clutched the lapels of his jacket, drawing him closer as the kiss deepened from questioning to demanding. His arms encircled me, one hand tangling in my hair as he backed me against the desk, lifting me effortlessly to sit on its edge. The controlled power in his movement sent a thrill of equal parts fear and desire through me. This was a man accustomed to taking what he wanted, and right now, what he wanted was me. Reality crashed back when his phone buzzed insistently on the desk beside us. Vincenzo broke the kiss with obvious reluctance, keeping me trapped within the cage of his arms as he checked the screen. My associates are waiting, he said, voice rough with barely leashed desire. This conversation isn't finished, Sophia. I slid from the desk on unsteady legs, my mind reeling from what had just happened. When do you leave? Tomorrow morning. His eyes darkened as they traced over my flushed face. We'll discuss this further tonight, after Lucas is asleep. It wasn't a request. It was a declaration, a claiming. I fled the east wing with my heart pounding, and my lips still burning from his kiss, the sealed envelope clutched in my trembling hand. What had I done? Crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, embraced danger I should have run from. Yet beneath the fear and confusion burned something else, a treacherous thrill, an intoxicating taste of power. The most dangerous man I'd ever met wanted me, not just as his son's caretaker, not just as an employee, but as a woman. I avoided Vincenzo for the rest of the day, focusing entirely on Lucas and his needs. The boy seemed to sense my disquiet, sticking close and repeatedly asking if I was feeling sick. "I'm just tired," I assured him during his evening bath time. "Everyone gets tired sometimes, right?" He nodded seriously, arranging his bath toys in perfect alignment along the tub's edge. "Papa says you're special, that you understand things others don't." "Oh," I froze in the act of pouring shampoo. "Your father said that? About me?" "Last night. He was watching the videos of us in the garden. He smiled when you knew exactly which puzzle piece I was looking for without me saying anything. The revelation that Vincenzo reviewed security footage of Lucas and me together shouldn't have surprised me, yet it did. What else had he observed? What conclusions had he drawn from watching our interactions? After tucking Lucas in with his precise bedtime ritual, I returned to my suite to find a handwritten note slipped beneath my door. "Dinner on the terrace. 9 p.m. V. Not a request, a command. I changed 3 times, hating myself for caring how I looked. In the end, I chose a simple blue dress from the wardrobe of designer clothes that had mysteriously appeared in my closet during my first week, clothes I'd initially resisted wearing but had gradually accepted as part of this strange new life. The private terrace off the master suite was lit by dozens of candles, their golden light reflecting off crystal and silver that had been arranged on an intimate table for 2. The city sprawled below, a carpet of twinkling lights beneath a velvet sky. Vincenzo stood at the stone balustrade, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He'd changed from his business suit into dark slacks and a charcoal shirt, the top buttons undone to reveal a glimpse of tanned throat. He turned at my approach, his gaze traveling over me with unconcealed appreciation. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "This feels like a date," I observed, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Is that what this is?" He moved closer, offering me a glass of wine. "Does that frighten you?" "Everything about you frightens me." A smile touched his lips. "Yet here you are. Because you summoned me." "Did I?" He reached out, fingertips grazing my cheek in that now familiar gesture of possession. "Or are you here because, despite your fear, you can't stay away?" The truth of his words burned. I could have ignored his note, could have claimed exhaustion and locked myself in my suite. Yet I'd come, drawn by something I couldn't or wouldn't name. "Why me?" I asked, voicing the question that had plagued me since that first night at the restaurant. "You could have anyone. I have had many," he acknowledged without arrogance. "Women attracted to power, to danger, to wealth. Women who saw a useful alliance or a thrilling diversion." His fingers slid beneath my chin, tilting my face up to his. "But you saw my son, not as a burden or a defect or a means to my fortune, but as himself." His voice dropped to an intimate murmur. "Do you know how rare that is in my world, Sophia? Genuine concern, authentic kindness, these are luxuries even I struggle to acquire." The vulnerability in his admission caught me off guard. This dangerous man, this predator who ruled his domain with deadly precision, was showing me a glimpse of something raw and real beneath the controlled exterior. "I never planned this," he continued, his thumb tracing my lower lip. "You were meant to be an employee, nothing more." "And now?" I whispered. His eyes darkened. "Now I find myself wanting things I shouldn't want. Things that complicate an already complex situation. Vincenzo." His mouth claimed mine before I could finish, the kiss deeper and more demanding than the one we'd shared in his office. This time there was no business call to interrupt, no reason to pull away except my own rapidly fading sense of self-preservation. When I woke the next morning, sunlight was already streaming through the windows of a bedroom that wasn't mine. Disoriented, I sat up clutching silk sheets to my chest, memories of the previous night flooding back in a rush of images and sensations, Vincenzo's hands exploring my body with possessive precision, his mouth claiming every inch of me, whispered Italian against my skin as pleasure built to almost unbearable heights. What had I done? Beside me, the bed was empty, though the impression of his body remained. On the nightstand lay a folded note, my name written in elegant script, Sophia. Business requires my immediate attention. I'll return in 3 days. The envelope I gave you yesterday contains everything you need should complications arise. Trust no one but Salvatore. He alone knows the contingency plans for Lucas. What happened between us changes nothing about your position here, and everything about where we go from here. We will discuss this upon my return. Keep my son safe. V. No tender endearments, no acknowledgement of the intimacy we'd shared. Just practical instructions and a cryptic reference to a future conversation. I slipped back to my suite before the household staff began their morning routines, grateful that Lucas was a late riser due to his medication schedule. In the shower, I examined the faint marks Vincenzo had left on my skin, possessive brands that told a story of controlled passion finally unleashed. What had I gotten myself into? I'd crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, given myself to a man whose very existence was built on violence and control. A man who had essentially coerced me into working for him, who held my father's life and my family's welfare in his hands. Yet even as these thoughts circled, I couldn't deny the truth. There had been no coercion last night. I had gone to him willingly, surrendered completely, taken everything he offered and demanded more. The realization terrified me. The next 2 days passed in a strange limbo. I focused entirely on Lucas, grateful for his structured routine and precise needs that left little room for dwelling on my complicated feelings for his father. The boy missed Vincenzo but seemed less anxious than during previous absences, perhaps sensing my new determination to maintain normalcy. On the third evening, the night Vincenzo was due to return, I tucked Lucas into bed with his favorite story and retreated to my suite, nerves jangling with anticipation. What would happen when he returned? Would he act as if nothing had changed? Would he expect me to continue as both caretaker and lover? The uncertainty was maddening. My phone buzzed with a text from Diana. Mr. Rossi's flight delayed. ETA tomorrow morning. He requests you continue normal routines with Lucas. The anticlimax left me oddly deflated. I'd spent all day preparing myself for a confrontation, a conversation, something. And now another night of waiting stretched before me. Sleep eluded me. At midnight, I gave up trying and slipped out to the garden, seeking fresh air to clear my head. The night was unusually warm for early November, the sky clear and star-studded. I wandered to the secluded bench where Vincenzo and I had first truly talked, now a spot loaded with significance. A twig snapped somewhere in the shadows beyond the garden lighting. I stiffened, scanning the darkness. Hello? Is someone there? Silence. Then movement, a figure emerging from the shadows near the garden wall. Not Vincenzo. Not one of the regular security guards either. I stood, backing toward the house. The estate is monitored. Security will be here any second. The man, tall, with a jagged scar bisecting his left cheek, smiled coldly. No, they won't. He spoke with a thick Eastern European accent. Your guards had unfortunate accidents during shift change. Ice flooded my veins as I registered his meaning. The regular 10 o'clock security rotation. These men had been waiting for that vulnerability. What do you want? I asked, already knowing the answer. Where is the boy? Lucas. They were after Lucas, just as Vincenzo had feared. The kidnapping attempt he'd mentioned wasn't an isolated incident from the past. It was an ongoing threat. I thought of the envelope in my nightstand. The contingency plans I hadn't reviewed carefully enough. Stupid mistake. He's not here. I lied. Vincenzo took him when he left town. The man's smile widened. We know Rossi is away. We know the boy is here. And we know you are his new caretaker. And the way he said the word dripped with insinuation. Now you will take us to him, or things will become very unpleasant. I noticed then that he wasn't alone. 2 more figures emerged from the shadows, one with a gun visible at his side. My mind raced. The villa was massive. If I could get inside and trigger the security system from the control panel in the kitchen, then get to Lucas and hide in the panic room Vincenzo had shown me. I bolted. For a precious few seconds, surprise gave me an advantage. I sprinted across the garden toward the nearest door, fumbling for the key card I always carried. Behind me, angry shouts and pounding footsteps closed the distance. I slammed through the door and into the darkened kitchen, hands scrabbling for the alarm panel. Before I could reach it, the door burst open again. Strong hands grabbed me from behind, a gloved palm clamping over my mouth. "That was stupid," the scarred man hissed in my ear. "Now we do this the hard way." A sharp pain exploded at my temple, and darkness swallowed me. Consciousness returned in painful increments. Cold floor beneath my cheek, hands bound behind my back, the taste of blood in my mouth. I forced my eyes open, blinking against the harsh light of a bare bulb overhead. I was in the villa's wine cellar, a cavernous space beneath the east wing that I'd only glimpsed once during Diana's tour. Rows of bottles lined temperature-controlled racks, their combined value probably equal to a small country's GDP. The scarred man stood nearby, speaking rapidly into a phone in a language I didn't understand. 2 others guarded the entrance, weapons drawn. Most terrifying of all, Lucas sat huddled in the corner, arms wrapped around his knees, rocking back and forth in the self-soothing motion I recognized from his most distressed moments. His eyes were squeezed shut, his breathing rapid and shallow, the beginning stages of a meltdown. When the scarred man ended his call, I found my voice. "Please," I said, "let me help the boy. He has special needs. This situation could trigger a severe episode." He regarded me with cold disinterest. "The boy will be fine once we deliver him to his uncle." His uncle? Confusion momentarily overrode my fear. Matteo De Lucci, brother of the boy's dead mother. Rightful guardian, according to Italian family courts. His smile was cruel. Rossi's American custody arrangement is questionable. Once we return the boy to his maternal family in Naples, they will ensure he receives proper treatment for his condition. Horror washed over me as I remembered Vincenzo's words. His mother's family wanted to institutionalize him after she died. They called him broken. "Lucas doesn't need treatment," I said, struggling to sit up despite my bound hands. "He needs routine, understanding, and patience. His father provides that." "His father," the man spat, "is a murderer who stole the child and eliminated anyone who tried to return him to his rightful family." The pieces clicked into place. This wasn't a random kidnapping for leverage. This was a family blood feud, Vincenzo versus his dead wife's relatives, with Lucas caught in the middle. "Let me go to him," I pleaded, nodding toward Lucas, whose rocking had intensified. "He trusts me. I can keep him calm until whatever arrangements you're making are complete." The man considered this, then nodded to one of his companions, who roughly cut the zip tie binding my wrists. "Try anything," the scarred man warned, "and we'll reconsider the necessity of keeping you alive once we have the boy secured." I rubbed circulation back into my hands, then slowly approached Lucas, keeping my movements measured and my voice soft. "Lucas, it's Sophia. I'm here with you." His rocking continued, but his eyes opened, finding mine with naked terror. "I want Papa," he whispered. "I know, buddy." I knelt beside him, careful not to touch him without permission during his distressed state. "Can I sit with you?" A jerky nod. I settled next to him, offering my presence without demands. "Remember our breathing exercise for big feelings?" I demonstrated the deep inhale and slow exhale we'd practiced. To my relief, Lucas began mimicking me, his rocking gradually slowing. "The bad men want to take me away," he whispered after several minutes. "Like before." "I won't let that happen," I promised, hoping it wasn't a lie. "Your father will come for us. Papa will be very angry," Lucas said with such conviction that, despite our dire circumstances, I felt a flicker of hope. The scarred man's phone rang again. He answered, his expression darkening as he listened. "Understood," he said finally, ending the call. He barked orders to his men in their shared language, gestures suggesting increased urgency. "Change of plans," he announced, approaching us. "We move now. Transport has arrived." "No," Lucas whimpered, his body tensing. "No, no, no. Can't go. It's not safe time. It's not safe time." I recognized the beginning of a severe meltdown. Once triggered, it would be impossible to move him without physical force, which would only escalate his distress to dangerous levels. "He needs his medication," I said quickly. "Upstairs in his bathroom cabinet, a blue pill that helps with anxiety." Without it, he'll become completely unmanageable during transport. The scarred man's eyes narrowed with suspicion. You want to deliver a hysterical, screaming child? I challenged. How discreet would that be? His medication will keep him calm. It's in your best interest. After a moment's consideration, he nodded to one of his men. Check the boy's bathroom. Blue pill, as she said. When the man had gone, I returned to soothing Lucas, whispering reassurances while mentally calculating our slim chances of escape. Even if the contingency protocols had been triggered, even if Vincenzo was somehow alerted, would help arrive in time? Minutes later, the man returned with Lucas's medication and a bottle of water. I helped Lucas take his pill, knowing it would take at least 20 minutes to take effect. Time we might not have. Now we go, the scarred man ordered, grabbing Lucas's arm roughly. The boy recoiled, a keening wail beginning deep in his throat. No touching. No touching. Stop, I intervened. He has sensory issues. Being grabbed will only make things worse. Let me lead him, and he'll follow calmly. The man released Lucas with obvious frustration. You have 2 minutes to get him ready to move. After that, we do it my way. I crouched before Lucas, who was retreating back into himself, hands pressed over his ears. Lucas, look at me, I said firmly. When his panicked eyes met mine, I continued. We need to go with these men for a little while. I'll stay with you the whole time, I promise. Papa says never go with strangers. Never leave without him or you or Diana. I know, but this is a special circumstance, like a fire drill. Sometimes we have to change the routine for safety. I was desperately improvising, and I'll be with you every step, okay? He searched my face, his brilliant mind working through the situation despite his distress. Then, to my surprise, he said very softly, Secret code. Bluebird. I blinked, unsure what he meant. Then realization dawned, the emergency protocols Vincenzo had mentioned. Lucas had been trained for this possibility. Before I could respond, a tremendous crash echoed from somewhere above us, followed by gunfire. The scarred man cursed, shouting orders to his companions. One rushed up the cellar stairs while the other moved to the secondary exit, a narrow passage that presumably led outside. Move! The scarred man ordered, grabbing my arm and yanking me to my feet. Bring the boy. Lucas remained frozen, hands over his ears, eyes squeezed shut again. More gunfire. Closer now. The man who'd gone upstairs didn't return. The scarred man's face contorted with rage. He raised his weapon, pointing it at me. Get the boy moving or die where you stand. Lucas, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. We need to go now. Hold my hand and don't let go, no matter what. To my relief, Lucas stood and took my hand, though his entire body trembled with suppressed panic. The scarred man herded us toward the secondary exit, where his remaining companion was already working to unlock the heavy door. The sound of fighting grew louder above us. Just as the exit door swung open, the cellar's main entrance burst inward. 2 black-clad figures moved with military precision into the space, weapons raised. Down! One shouted in English. I pulled Lucas to the floor, covering his body with mine as gunfire erupted around us. The scarred man returned fire, bullets pinging off wine racks and shattering bottles. The air filled with the sharp tang of spilled alcohol and gunpowder. Then silence, broken only by Lucas's frightened whimpers beneath me. Clear! Someone called. Cautiously, I raised my head. Both intruders lay motionless on the floor. The 2 black-clad figures moved methodically through the cellar, checking for additional threats. One approached us, lowering his tactical helmet to reveal a familiar face, Salvatore, Vincenzo's most trusted security chief. Ms. Tanner, Lucas, are you hurt? I shook my head, still covering Lucas protectively. We're okay. Shaken but not injured, Salvatore spoke rapidly into his communication device, then helped us to our feet. Mr. Rossi is en route, ETA 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes stretched like hours as Salvatore escorted us upstairs to the main foyer. The villa showed signs of a fierce battle, shattered glass, bullet holes in walls, dark stains on marble floors that I tried to prevent Lucas from seeing. And then Vincenzo was there, bursting through the front doors with a wildness I'd never seen in him before. His usual controlled demeanor had fractured, revealing something primal and terrifying beneath. When he saw Lucas, raw emotion transformed his face. He crossed the space between them in 3 long strides, dropping to one knee to embrace his son. "Piccolo mio," he murmured, holding Lucas with gentle ferocity. "Are you hurt?" "I remembered the secret code," Lucas said proudly, though his voice still shook. "Bluebird means call Salvatore and hide in the special room, but the bad men came before I could hide." "You did perfectly," Vincenzo assured him, pressing a kiss to his forehead before standing to face me, the look in his eyes as they swept over me, checking for injuries, affirming my safety, stole my breath. This wasn't the calculated assessment of an employer concerned for an investment. This was naked fear, relief, and something deeper I wasn't ready to name. "Sophia," he said, my name a prayer and a question. "I'm okay," I managed, though my voice betrayed me by breaking. The shock and terror I'd suppressed for Lucas's sake threatened to overwhelm me now that safety had arrived. Vincenzo closed the distance between us, pulling me against him with the same desperate relief he'd shown his son. "I should never have left," he said, his voice rough against my hair. "Matteo's men have been watching for months, waiting for an opportunity." "How did you know?" I asked, allowing myself to draw strength from his solid presence. "Lucas activated the emergency alert when they broke in. Salvatore called me immediately." His arms tightened around me. I was already on my way back. The business trip was a ruse to draw out Matteo's people, but they moved faster than we anticipated. Over Vincenzo's shoulder, I watched as his security team efficiently cleared the villa, removing bodies and evidence of the night's violence with practiced precision. The brutal reality of his world, of the world I'd entered, could no longer be ignored. Yet as I stood in his embrace, Lucas safe beside us, I realized a simple truth. There was nowhere else I wanted to be. Despite the danger, despite knowing exactly what Vincenzo was capable of, I had made my choice the moment I approached that table at Bellucci's and offered dessert to a lonely child everyone else ignored. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. Vincenzo drew back, his expression grave as he studied my face. "Now we finish this. Matteo crossed a line tonight that cannot be uncrossed. While Lucas and I were apart, there was always vulnerability. That ends now." The cold certainty in his voice left no doubt about Matteo's fate. "And us?" I dared to ask. His expression softened minutely. "That depends entirely on you, Sophia." He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear in that now familiar gesture of possession. "You've seen the truth of my world now. The danger, the violence. I won't insult you by pretending it will ever be different. I thought of my father, getting stronger each day thanks to treatments Vincenzo had provided. My siblings, safe and secure in their new home, Lucas, who needed me as much as I'd come to need him, and Vincenzo himself, the contradiction of tenderness and brutality, protection and possession, that had somehow become the center of my world. I made my choice the moment I saw your son," I said simply. Understanding passed between us, a recognition of the strange, imperfect bond that had formed from an act of simple kindness in a restaurant 3 weeks ago. Lucas tugged at my hand, his eyes serious as they met mine. "Are you going to stay with us forever now, Miss Sophia?" Vincenzo watched me, waiting for my answer with uncharacteristic vulnerability in his gaze. "Yes," I said, the decision crystallizing with perfect clarity. "I'm staying." As Vincenzo pulled me close again, his lips finding mine in a kiss that promised both protection and possession, I knew this strange new life, with all its darkness and danger, all its unexpected joy, was exactly where I belonged. Some choices, once made, redefine everything that follows. Mine began with a dessert offered to a forgotten child, and ended with finding a family I never knew I needed, in the most unexpected of places.